Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to our Hanafi fiqh class. We are doing the kitab known as Ala Sunan of Maulana Zafar Ahmad Thanvi, and we are continuing on with the chapter regarding tanning of hides. So let us begin. Bismillahi walhamdulillahi wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. So we are reading from hadith number 240, which, like I say, is in the chapter of Taharatul Ihab, purifying animal hides. So we read here عن ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما قال ماتت شاة لسودة بنت زمعة رضي الله عنها فقالت يا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ماتت فلانة تعني الشاة. Hazrat Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, he says that Hazrat Sauda binti Zama'a, Ummul Mu'mineen, the wife of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, a sheep belonging to her died. So Hazrat Sauda radiallahu anha, she said, Matat fulana. Fulana, Fulan and Ibn Fulan, masculine form, so and so, the son of so and so. So you even see little things like this which jumps out at the person. Fulana would mean so and so. So she was referring to the sheep which died by saying Fulana, for example. But the point being that it also shows that it wasn't Mary had a little lamb type situation, but at the same time, it was not the way some people are, it's just supper, that's your supper walking around the outside. So there was a degree of attachment to the animal, care, love, etc., all that sort of stuff. Not quite a pet, so don't go thinking from here, well, keeping a sheep at home is from the Sunnah of Sahaba, it wouldn't be such. But, people used to have their sheep because having a sheep would mean the sheep would give you, like they kept goats and everything. They would use it for food, for milk, for the wool, etc. So it would be used until the day that it gives birth to other sheep or it passes away, whatever the case may be, but it would be used right up until its end. So this sheep belonging to Hazrat Sauda radiallahu anha, it died. So she said that Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Fulana died, the sheep. So فقال فلولا أخذتم مسكها قالوا أنا أخذ مسك شاة قد ماتت فقال لها رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إنما قال الله تعالى قل لا أجد فيما أوحي إلي محرما على طاعم يطعمه إلا أن يكون ميتة أو دما مسفوحا أو لحم خنزير إلى آخر الآية. So when she said that to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, why don't you take its skin, make use of its skin. It's dead now, but make use of its skin. So they said that must we take the skin of a sheep that had died, meaning natural causes? It's carrion. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied to Hazrat Sauda radiyallahu anha saying that Allah Ta'ala says in the Quran, قُلْ لَا أَجِدُ فِي مَا أُوحِيَ إِلَيَّ. Say, I don't find in what has been revealed to me in the Quran, muharraman, something which is prohibited, عَلَى طَاعِمِ يَطْعَمُهُ, of the food stuff which a person eats, إِلَّا أَن يَكُونَ مَيْتًا, except if it is carrion, أو دَمًا مَسْفُوحًا, or flowing blood, أو لَحْمَ خِنْزِير, or meat, the flesh of pig, and the ayah continues on. But Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam recited this and said, وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تطعمونه إن تدبغوه تنتفعوا به. So Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, you're not going to be eating it. So if you tan it, you'll be able to make use of it. فأرسلت إليها فسلخت مسكها فدبغته فاتخذت منه قربة حتى تخرقت عندها. رواه أحمد بإسناد صحيح. So in the ayah, maytatan. So what Allah had prohibited was mayta in the Quran. So obviously, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, with all the other masail and the ahkam not having been revealed yet, so they were assuming it's carrion, so that means everything is good for nothing that be thrown away. But Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said no. The ayah the prohibition in the ayah was speaking about eating carrion. You are not going to be eating the skin. So if you take and make use of the skin, there's no problem with it. So tan it and you can use it. So it was sent to Hazrat Sauda radiallahu anha, and she took off the skin, skinned the animal and tanned it, and she made a قربة, which is like you can call a water bag out of it. حتى تخرقت عندها, and she kept it for so long until it ended up تخرقت means they're getting خرقة, holes in it, that it was used for so long until it reached, so to say, the end of its life, and it started, you couldn't keep any more water in it because the holes started to appear in it. So in other words, what it's simply saying is that Hazrat Sauda radiallahu anha used it until the end of its life, to show that it wasn't a one-off thing, you know, use it a little bit, and when you get something better, then you can take it from an animal that was slaughtered, you know, for qurbani, etc., etc. But here it was showing that it doesn't matter that it was from a meta source. The minute you have tanned it, it becomes 100% pure, so you can use it as much as you want to. You can, if you've tanned a hide and you've got now sheepskin, so to say, carpet, you know, like this here, you can sit on it. It's never going to be a problem. It's not a matter of it's dirty, it's just that it's pure the minute it has been tanned. Imam Ahmad rahimahullah reports it with an authentic chain. قال حماد لا okay, Imam Hamad rahimahullah, he says لا بأس بريش الميتة. There is no harm with the, you know, like you can say, even the feathers of an animal which has died. So you know how it is, whether you take pigeon feathers, duck feathers, chicken feathers, people use feathers a lot as stuffing for pillows. Let's not talk about down. You know, you got down feathers, which people use as the fancy duvets, you know, got filled with down feathers, and some top class pillows, they use that type of feathers. So now what it shows you is that you come along and there you find a dead duck on the side. Obviously, it's not rotting away that you're going to take rotten feathers, but you see maybe somebody hit him over the head, or somebody was shooting, you know, and there you find the duck laying dead, or whatever the case may be, but you find a dead duck or a dead chicken or whatever, so you take him and you pluck his feathers, it's permissible. وقال الزهري في عظام الموتى نحو الفيل وغيره. So okay, that was that part. Then Imam Zuhri rahimahullah, he speaks now with regards to the bones, the bones of carrion or animals which have died naturally. Now, when I say naturally, I mean anything outside of being slaughtered. So if it was killed by another animal, or a rock fell on it, or it fell off a cliff, or it drowned, it's all in the same category. It's because none of these things are halal. They all are deemed as being carrion. But the bones of it is still deemed as being permissible, like the skin if it is tanned, and so on and so forth. So you were saying with regards to the bones of elephants and other animals. So he says, أدركت ناسا من سلف العلماء يمتشطون بها ويدهنون فيها لا يرون به بأسا. So Imam Az-Zuhri, Imam Ibn Shihab, Abu Mus'ab Ibn Shihab Az-Zuhri, rahimahullah, he said that I met people from the ulama of the Salaf. And Imam Zuhri himself is from the Salaf. So he means from the Tabi'in and Sahaba radiyallahu anhum, that yamtashituna biha. They would comb their hair with it. In other words, you take a bone of an animal and you shape it to a comb and you use it. They would use it as a comb. وَيَدَّهِنُونَ فِيهَا. Dahan, the yaddahinuna comes from the word dahan, which is to put oil in, you know, where you keep your olive oil, so to speak, as a oil pot, not in the context of cooking your frying your samosas in it, but you understand the context. People would store their oil and use it as an oil container for applying olive oil to a person's hair and beard, etc., and so on. So the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, ulama and the Tabi'in, they didn't have a problem with you making use of the bones of animals which had died naturally, which, like we mentioned earlier, last week at least, that the bones of an animal are pure, even if the animal was shot dead, whether it died from being killed by another animal, whether it drowned, whether it fell and broke its neck, doesn't matter. It may be deemed as being carrion as far as eating is concerned, but the bones are deemed as being pure. So if you take and make a knife out of the bone, or you make like people do, at least they make a bone handle for the knife, or you make some bone, let's put it this way, designs. You use the bone for in various things of the sort, or you crush the bone and you turn it into bone china, like I mentioned last week. None of these things will be a problem. وقال ابن سيرين وإبراهيم رحمهم الله لا بأس بتجارة العاج رواه البخاري. Imam Muhammad ibn Sirin and Imam Ibrahim al-Nakha'i رحمهم الله, they said there's no problem with selling ivory. Aj is, as you know, which is ivory, which is tusks of elephants. Obviously, like I mentioned last week, like we would say the tusks of the elephant and the horn of the rhino, etc., are pure. What we would say is totally prohibited, which I mentioned last week, is for a person to go and hack the horn of a rhino while it's alive and things of the sort. This is cruelty to animals and it's totally haram. If you happen to have a dead rhino over there and you then cut it off, then it's not a problem. You come across a dead elephant and you take its tusks, not a problem. So, you know, as long as there's no cruelty to the animal involved, then it will be fine. But not the way the kuffar nowadays do, where they just hack 10 rhinos like that, and you come and you find them all laying dead there, having died because of their horns being cut off. So you do not do such evil actions. But the horn itself remains pure. Okay, so that was Imam Bukhari, Rawahul Bukhari. Imam Bukhari, rahimahullah, narrates that from them. Moving on, he says, عن ثوبان رضي الله عنه مرفوعا اشترى لفاطمة رضي الله عنها قلادة من عصف وسوارين من عاج رواه أبو داود وسكت عنه وتكلم فيه المنذري بتجهيل بعض الرواة كما في عون المعبود قلت قد علمت أن الاختلاف غير مضر. Okay, so Imam Hadrat Thawban radiallahu anhu, he narrates marfu'an, means in a marfu' form, right, taking it right up to in this case, it's not as if it's the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but he is saying essentially is that what you understand from this is that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had gotten for Hadrat Fatima radiallahu anha a qilada, which is a necklace, min asbin. Now, what is asb? The fuqaha themselves they have a little bit of ikhtilaf about what exactly does this mean. Asb, if you were to look in a dictionary, it refers to what you when you take the nerves of an animal, maybe nerves is not sinew, that's the better word, not nerves, but you if you let it dry out, it becomes like a sort of rope. So they said that this necklace used this animal sinew as the string where the whatever beads, whatever type of thing was put on it. So that's the one interpretation. Other ulama say they are unsure what exactly it means, but those who take it from this literal part, they say that you could, we know how it is. You see when it's sinew and it's something which is tight, so you can very well make a necklace or at least a rope of a necklace out of it. So it was taken and it was turned into a rope for a necklace, and whatever beads, that is not part is not discussed, but the point being it was a part of an animal and it was deemed as being pure. That's that part. وَسِوَارَيْنِ مِنْ عَاجٍ, and 2 bangles, bracelets, which were made out of ivory. So showing that Hazrat Fatima radiallahu anha herself had ivory bracelets. So therefore, had there been problems, had it been a problem to make use of ivory, Hazrat Fatima radiallahu anha would not have been allowed to use it. So what it shows is that even though we can't eat an elephant, but the elephant died and you made use of its tusks for the ivory, it's not a problem at all. So he says Imam Abu Dawud rahimahullah reports it and he keeps silent about it. But Imam al-Mundhiri, he commented on it and he found there to be a degree of weakness in it from his side, because he says some of the narrators are unknown. But Imam Zafar Ahmad Tanvi, he says that, we've touched it many times, that if you have different muhaddithin differing on a particular narration or narrator, then it's not a problem. So Imam Abu Dawud, it was his habit. If he kept silent, it means he regarded it as being reliable. So Imam Abu Dawud regarded it as reliable and Imam al-Mundhiri regarded it as not being so. So therefore, we're happy to go with the grading of Imam Abu Dawud. That's basically what he's trying to say. So that's the end of the chapter of tanning of animals. Sure, in the books of fiqh, you'll find a whole chapter and a whole lot of details and stuff like that. But what it sufficed for us to know is that if you do happen to come across animal hides, which have been tanned, then it is permissible to use them. So you may look around and you see people selling guni cow hides and stuff like this here, or a chair which has been covered with cow hide or sheep hide, or people selling these, like I said, the kudu skins and stuff. You can literally take it and it would be permissible for you to buy. It's permissible for you to resell. It's permissible for you to keep in your house. It's permissible for you to sit on, or and etc., etc., etc. Obviously, like I said last week, pig is an exception. So it doesn't matter if it's a pigskin shoe or a pigskin jacket or a pigskin couch or anything of the sort. It is impure. It is impermissible. You cannot use such a thing. Okay, so that was the end of that chapter. Let's move on just a little bit because the next one is a very short one. He says, Babu jawazi taharati bima'in khalatahu shay'un tahirun. The chapter that it is permissible, or at least it's permissible and possible for water to be pure and a purifier if it has been mixed with something which is pure. In other words, you've got clean water and something clean falls into it, then the water remains pure. So he says, عن أم هاني رضي الله عنها أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم اغتسل هو وميمونة رضي الله عنها من إناء واحد في قصعة فيها أثر العجين. رواه ابن خزيمة في صحيحه والنسائي. So Hadrat Hani radiyallahu anha, she said that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam and Hadrat Maymuna radiyallahu anha made ghusl from, not in, from one container of water, fi qas'atin. Literally, qas'a would be translated as a plate. So you would understand it's a deepish bowl which had water in it, but fiha atharul ajin. There was leftover flour inside it. In other words, you can understand also the size of this bowl. You don't make, we're not talking in today's world where you've got digs, big things, and now there happen to be some flour. Not at all. But Sahaba radiallahu anhum, for most of the time, they didn't even have one meal a day. So, especially in the house of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was a regular sized bowl, and that shows you also how little water Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to use for wudu and ghusl. So, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Hadrat Hani radiyallahu anha were using this one bowl of water for the purpose of ghusl, each one dishing out, and the inside that bowl was still left over flour from when it was used to maybe make some bread in it. So the fact that there was flour inside it, which was a pure substance, and now the water mixed with this dried flour, so to say, it didn't change the fact that the water was still remained pure. So we can apply it in our context, however way you want to look upon it. If you and like I always say, pure, people refer today and they talk about dirty dishes. Dirty dishes is not really a correct term to use. It is, when you talk about dirt, people tend to think impurity. It's not one and the same thing. You literally just ate your food in there now. You only just got curry stains in it. But that's pure. There's nothing impure in it. So now you've got a bowl where you had yesterday's curry in. There's still turmeric all over the bowl. So you put the water inside there, and the water maybe even gets a little bit of yellow when the curry washes off the side. The water still remains pure, in simple terms. So that's the one simple hadith, one short chapter, because there's no need to go further than this point. Sure, I shouldn't say there's no need to go further. There's a more extra details in this regard, but that will be done at a later stage. For now, we just wanted to bring this one point as an interjection from what we were currently discussing. He says Imam Ibn Khuzaymah rahimahullah reports this hadith in his Sahih, and Imam An-Nasai rahimahullah reports it as well. All right, let's see, maybe we can do, I hope we can do the next 1, 2, 3, 4 ahadith before the time runs out. Babu jawazi taharati bima'il musakhan, the chapter that it is permissible and possible to purify yourself with heated water. مسخن سخين, something which is hot. So عن ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما قال لا بأس أن يغتسل بالحميم ويتوضأ منه. رواه عبد الرزاق بسند صحيح. Hadrat Abdullah ibn Abbas رضي الله عنهما, he said there's no harm if you make ghusl with hot water or making wudu with it. Imam Abdul Razak rahimahullah reports it in his Musannaf with an authentic chain, as is mentioned by Imam Ibn Hajar in At-Talkhis al-Habir. Moving on to the next narration, 244 عن سلمة بن الأكوع رضي الله عنه أنه كان يسخن الماء ويتوضأ منه رواه ابن أبي شيبة وأبو عبيد وإسناده صحيح. Hazrat Salama ibn al-Akwa رضي الله عنه, he used to heat water and then make wudu with that water. So you would, you take your water, you put it in your pot, you put it over a fire, and then you make wudu with it. We're not talking about making wudu here with tea, but you got hot water. So you don't necessarily need to make wudu only with cold water. We discussed about making wudu with cold water in the difficulty, etc., etc., etc. But what we also shows is that if you make wudu with hot water, it's not a problem at all. Okay, if you may be wondering, was there an issue with hot water? I'll touch upon that shortly when we complete the hadith. In any case, so Imam Ibn Abi Shayba rahimahullah is the narrator of this hadith, and Imam Abu Ubaid, Imam Ibn Abi Shayba in his Musannaf, and the chain of narration is authentic, once again stated by Imam Ibn Hajar in At-Talkhis al-Habir. Hadith number 245 عن معمر عن أيوب عن نافع عن أن ابن عمر رضي الله عنهما كان يتوضأ بالحميم رواه عبد الرزاق قلت وإسناده على شرط الجماعة. Imam Ma'mar ibn Rashid narrated from Imam Ayyub from Imam Nafi' that Hazrat Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu anhuma used to make wudu with hamim, with hot water. If you've read the Quran, you would have come across the word hamim, specifically also in the context of Jahannam, the boiling water, which would be, the kuffar would be punished with boiling water in Jahannam as well. No cool water for you, water which would burn right through a hole right through you. So hamim, but hamim literally just here means hot water. So hot water which was heated over a fire once again, and now as a result the water was hot. Obviously we're not talking about water so hot that you can burn yourself with. You just boil a kettle and you use it. Not at all. But simply put, that the water was heated and it was not just literal taken out of a well and used in that fashion. So Imam Abdul Razak rahimahullah reported in his Musannaf, and it's mentioned that the chain of narration ala sharat al-jama'a, it's on the conditions of the main muhaddithin. So in other words, the chain of narration is authentic. And the last one of this chapter is حديث number 246 عن أسلم مولى عمر رضي الله عنهما أن عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه يسخن له ماء في قمقمة ويغتسل منه رواه الدارقطني وقال إسناده صحيح. Okay, so yeah, the last hadith of this chapter is reported by Imam Aslam. Now Aslam is the slave of Hazrat Umar radiyallahu anhu. Now, you may have, if you know the life of Hazrat Umar radiyallahu anhu, you would have come across the story, or at least you would have come across mention of this slave by the name of Aslam, going around with Hazrat Umar radiyallahu anhu. The story about Hazrat Umar radiyallahu anhu going out at night, carrying the flour and stuff on his back, etc. Aslam was with one of the slaves of Hazrat Umar radiyallahu anhu that used to assist him in many things of the sort. So this Aslam, he said that he was a free slave, like I say, of Hazrat Umar radiyallahu anhu, that Hazrat Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu, he used to heat water in a container and he used to make ghusl with it. So what it shows once again is, just because we did a hadith on ghusl, etc., in a bowl, whatever, it does not necessarily mean that the water was all cold. The water may well have been heated also. It's your choice whether you want to make a wudu or ghusl with hot water or with cold water. There's no harm in it. So whichever way you want to do it, the Sharia has given you leeway in that regard. So like I mentioned last time, the only point would be if you are, for example, using a shower, you don't have the water, or forget a shower, a bath, whatever the case may be, you don't let the cold water all run away down the drain, and then because most geysers take a while to kick in, unless you've got one of these immediate instant hot water geysers, as they call it. So you just open the tap and immediately the water's hot. That's a different story. But basically, simply put, you don't waste water, but you can heat the water if you want to, make wudu and ghusl with hot water, or you can do so with cold water. It's entirely your choice. But what it shows is that if you don't have the means of heating the water and the water is there and it's cold, you can't come make an excuse and say, I can't make a wudu, the water is cold, unless you have some sort of uh, for example, some very bad sickness. So touching the cold water will make your sickness worse. That's a different story. But generally, you can't use that as a sort of excuse. Okay, so anyway, that was Imam Ad-Darqutni rahimahullah, and he reports this hadith, and he says that the chain of narration is authentic. Now, like I said, the reason why this chapter is speaking about water which has been heated is because you have a particular issue with regards to water which has been heated by the sun. So now you have a narration in this regard that there was water which was heated by the sun. So there's water which you heat yourself over a fire and water which is heated by the sun. And in this one narration, Hadrat Aisha radiallahu anha brought some water which was heated by the sun, and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam told her, no, you shouldn't do this. I mean, don't make use of this water because it causes leprosy. Now, authenticity and stuff, muhaddithin differ on it, but long story short, what we will say is that a person should abstain using water which has been heated by the sun. It's different. Now, a thing may prop up in a person's mind. What happens then about the solar geyser? Ulama have said that the solar geyser don't fall into the same category because a solar geyser is not being heated by the sun. It's solar. I mean, the sun is giving power to the geyser, and the geyser is then via the solar power is heating the water. It's not the same as putting out a container outside and the heat makes the water hot. The sun makes the water hot. It's not the same thing. So in one case, the sun is making the water hot. In the other case, the geyser is making the water hot, and the geyser is powered by solar power. So not quite the same thing. So a solar powered geyser would be fine, but water which has been heated by the sun, sometimes you may come, especially if it's a hot day, you've got some water outside and you feel the water and the water's hot. So if you have water like that, don't use it. Like I say, the ulama do differ on the authenticity, but how does it harm a person to steer clear of it? Ulama in the science of tib, medicine, they say that you should abstain from such water. So therefore, very least, if a doctor tells you don't use such water, nobody will use it because Dr. Saab said so. So when the ulama of medicine, if they say, they too are deserving of a hearing. So as far as is possible, don't use such water, but water which, like I say, has been heated by a solar geyser doesn't fall into the same category, so it will be fine. That's the end of that chapter, and it's the end of our class for tonight, inshallah ta'ala, and it's also the end of our class for this term, to use those terms. So we will, tonight is the 1st of Sha'ban, with the moon having been sighted in South Africa. So Sha'ban has officially begun, 1443, and we end our classes on this point here. Inshallah, we will go. Like I said, all classes have come to a stop. We stop Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday classes. All are stopped until after Eid, inshallah. So as you know, we are now on the 3rd of March. So about 2nd, 3rd of April, possibly 3rd of April is when Ramadan would begin, and around about the 2nd of May or so is when Eid would be. So we've got till after that. So you've got at least 2 full months of holiday before we will resume classes, inshallah ta'ala. If Allah keeps us all alive and grants us the tawfiq to be able to continue on with our classes, then we'll continue on with it. But like I also mentioned last night, those taking part in the Arabic class, take out the time to go and do revision and homework and catch up on all the previous lessons so that you can be up to date with the classes. Obviously, with regards to the fiqh, it's not exactly something you need to catch up on, but if you do need to check masail that have been discussed, you're welcome to check it, go through the previous 50 classes, the Riyadh al-Salihin classes. Obviously, it's always beneficial to just hear the ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and our tafsir class, even though we only managed to cover Surah Naba, Surah Nazi'at, Surah Abasa wa Tawalla, and Surah Takwir, and we entered into Surah Al-Infitar. we only managed to do that a little bit over a course of 50 classes. It sounds a little bit for so many classes, but we tended to move at a very slow pace. But that being said, we will stop tonight officially on this point, inshallah ta'ala. Allah grant us all the acceptance and the ability to make amal upon what we have learned, and to not stray from the path of guidance, and may Allah keep us firm upon it until the day that we die and resurrect us upon it مع النبيين والصديقين والشهداء والصالحين وحسن أولئك رفيقا. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته، وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد. سبحان الله وبحمده، سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك، نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت، نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.